Primordial Radio.
Welcome back to Primordial Radio. My name is Pete Bailey. Today, delighted to be speaking for the first time, actually, with Aaron Pauley from Of Mice and Men. Dude, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. And it's nice to speak to a guest where we both got like the nice setups, because sometimes it'd be a little difficult when a band is doing it on their phone on a moving tour bus. Hoping that Starlink is holding out.
Oh, yeah.
So, dude, your brand new album, Tether, your 8th studio album, is out today via Sharp Tone Records. Was listening to it earlier. Fantastic new album.
Oh, thank you kindly.
For me, the thing that I was really enjoying about the album was that it seems to sort of be progressively progressive for a Mice and Men record. And I was wondering, do you, as a band, continuously take on new influences as a band as you go through and write your albums?
I do. I also think like we have to continuously find ways of reinventing, at least for ourselves. Yeah, and not entirely, but at least enough for us to find sort of excitement and enjoyment out of it. Like we're not a band that likes doing the same thing over and over and over again. So like we have to work to do, we have to work to find those things. And so it often sort of ends up manifesting itself as like an evolution in the sound, I guess.
I feel like it's one of the most difficult things for bands to deliver, because ultimately any band that starts out and builds up a sound and gets known for that sound will have that sort of establishment there. And there is a little bit of a level of expectation of what fans would be expecting to hear.
Oh, sure.
But at the same time, fans also and bands, you want to hear something different. So you've got to create something different, but also something that isn't, say for you guys, like a Cannibal Corpse record, say. You got, is it a challenge to sort of try and hit that bullseye?
Yeah, and I also think it's an impossible challenge to hit the bullseye, because art is just subjective, and a lot of what music is time and place, and is it the soundtrack to your life at this time and place, and but I think if you approach what you're doing genuinely, then you have a better chance of connecting with people.
You say that it's an impossible task to hit that bullseye, but I would actually sort of almost put it back to you in that I think like one of the beautiful things about Of Mice and Men is that you are a band now that has not been solely defined by the earlier works, which is a very difficult thing for bands, particularly ones that, really blow up in their early years. I was just taking a quick look at your Spotify, and, one of your top songs is a track that came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah, crazy.
So that must feel quite rewarding, knowing that the new music that you're working on, the things that you're working on right now, and, even like relatively new over the past few years, is ultimately being well received by your fans.
Yeah, ultimately everything we do is for them. It's like the music we create is just like an offering to our fans in a way. So when it's well received, it makes us feel good, because it feels like we felt like we were onto something, and we knew that we did our due diligence with that record and with Tether. So the fact that it does resonate is it's a hugely rewarding feeling, very humbling.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about Tether then. How did you approach Tether? Because it seems like you've been very quick to put new albums out. Like there's only like about a year or two gap between each of the last albums that have come out in, say, the last sort of 4 or 5 years.
We work really efficiently, as far as the music, like the music creation side, we usually work, I don't know, we'll spend anywhere from 1 day to maybe a week per song. And we'll just bang out just tons of instrumental ideas until we feel like we've sort of struck on something that everybody is equally excited about. So then, then from there we end up with sort of like special, what we consider like the more special ones. They end up in a special Dropbox folder. And
band's got its Dropbox folder.
Oh yeah. They get they get they end up getting lyrics and vocals, and from there we end up deciding what goes on the record. But no, we work really effectively and efficiently together. But the other thing too is like we stay pretty creative, like we tend to, if we're not prepping for a tour or on a tour, we like working on music. So we try and stay as prolific as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we talked just earlier about the different influences, wanting to ultimately, not get bored and keep pushing forward. What is, yourself and other members of the band, like, what have you been listening to at the moment? Like, what's getting you inspired? Is it old stuff? Is it new stuff? Like, what's getting you going?
Oh, I've been listening to a lot of old singer-songwriter music recently. I go through phases. It's like moods,
Yeah.
Like seasons, if you will. No, like when we were making the album, it's funny because I would say we all had different primary influences that we all brought to the table. It's hard for me to even like remember what I was listening to back then, but what I'm listening to now is a lot of like Simon and Garfunkel and Jim Croce and Cat Stevens. Wow. I just got a new car, which is the first time I've ever had a new car, and so it has Bluetooth, and so I can actually like decide the playlist when I'm driving to and from the rehearsal space, and
not just have one CD that's being churned out again and again.
Yeah, the Tool album. For me, it was always a Tool
yes,
album.
indeed. I'm quite curious about, like, when you see Simon and Garfunkel and Cat Stevens and artists like this. How do you manage to take an influence like that and sort of, how do you weave that into metalcore? Or is it more on the lyrical front? Like, how does that bridge sort of get built there?
Yeah, probably on the lyrical front. I think as far as the importance of storytelling and telling the same story that the music is telling, and how that there's sort of like a marriage there when it's done correctly and properly, you end up with a song where lyrically and melodically it fits perfectly with what the music is saying. Because, music itself is a universal language, quote unquote. You can play somebody a sad song on a violin anywhere in the world and they'll feel that, so it's sort of about figuring out what the music is saying and then not getting in the way.
I really liked the video for Castaway. And I was wondering, was that filmed in the UK?
Yeah, so part of it was we filmed the live performances for all of the music videos in Los Angeles, but then all of the B-roll and storytelling and all of like the post effects and putting it all together, that was all done in the UK.
Do you know how I can tell? Because I could just, it was all from the graffiti and the really battered up streets and whatnot. I was like, I don't think that's LA. This feels very homely. So how did that come about then, to sort of split between the two, to film, part of it in the UK, and part in LA, ultimately to help build the story about what Castaway is about?
So that's a twofold answer. Actually, part of it was because it was more cost effective for our director and his team. He's from the UK, to shoot there. But then the other part of it was that I wanted a lot of like brutalist architecture to be sort of the theme throughout the music videos, and we're actually dropping a new music video tomorrow.
Oh, amazing.
Which is actually crazy. All of this is like coming up at the same time. We're getting ready to leave for tour. So my brain's like thinking about leaving and not at all about the record. Yeah. So no, and all of that architecture is over there. So he was like, oh, there's a spot like an hour from me. I can shoot all this. It's like, oh, sick. Let's do that.
And so does that relate to the actual sort of concept of the song itself? Because you're talking about wanting that sort of brutal architecture there. And I saw particularly a lot in the comments on YouTube and stuff like that. There seemed to be a lot of people very much relating to that song and themes around isolation. Yeah.
I think that it's called brutalist architecture for a reason. It's kind of, it's a little bit on the sterile and inhuman side, so it's, to me, it sort of appears as what I would imagine those feelings feel like. And maybe that's just cliche. Maybe that's just from growing up watching movies. But
well, and kind of like the physical representation of how you actually might be feeling. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We got World Mental Health Day is coming up next week, and I was just wondering, like, how do you keep in tune with your own mental health and the band's mental health, and find ways to manage that? Because undoubtedly you'll have your trials, tribulation, and challenges, as you just say. Your record's dropping, you got a music video coming out, you got to go out on tour. There's quite a lot going on there.
Yeah, you just stuff it down and then you never talk about it.
No, I'm kidding. My guess is that will work for a bit, but
no. For me, it's creating art, it's creating music, it's performing. Performing is it's performance art. It's its own thing too. So it's that I play video games, and then I do my best. I practice gratitude. It's pretty easy if you're it's hard if your brain, at least for me, it's hard for me to be in a negative headspace if my brain power is focusing on making lists of things I'm grateful for. It's almost like you can't do the same thing, like you can't walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Your brain has a hard time getting in those sort of doom loops when you are actively making lists of things you're grateful for.
And how does that work then? Because with a collective of a band, because it's not just you as band members, you'll have crew members and tour managers and so many different things. Do you all sort of look out for each other? You're able to kind of tell when one person's having a bad day and try and pick them up and just do little things here and there.
We're all open door support systems for one another. So there's a good amount of checking in on one another, and there's also a good amount of giving people space, because you definitely don't want to be checking in every day if somebody's going through something like loss or hardship or missing home, or there's just a lot to go through. So. But
I imagine the space part is difficult when you're in a band.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, because, we're brothers, we get along, we're best friends, we love hanging out. So it's not really a challenge. It's more a joy. So.
That's fantastic to hear. So we talked earlier about Castaway and how that was filmed in the UK, and you're actually going to be back in the UK in December, which is fantastic. And I think this is your first UK headline run for some time. Obviously, we had COVID in the middle there, so so many reasons for that. So how much are you looking forward to getting back in the UK and doing a headline run?
Oh, so much. The set list is awesome. No, I'm stoked. I'm stoked to just share live music with our fans over there again. The pandemic and things that followed, it's sort of like there's the very real possibility that you don't get to do it again, and that's a real tangible thing. And so to be able to do it again, I don't know.
And there's a lot of bands that maybe they will get to do it again in time, but there's a lot of bands right now who certainly can't do it right now because of the knock-on effects of all the costs and everything like that. So I think if you're able to make it work and get out there, more power to you, because it's certainly not easy by any stretch, right?
No, there's pardon me, there's a reason it's taken us this long,
Brilliant. Well, Aaron, it has been such a pleasure to chat, and congratulations on the new album, Tether. It really is a fantastic album.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's really wonderful to hear bands push themselves, progress, try out different things. I think it's what the scene needs, what metal needs ultimately to keep pushing things forward. So, congratulations on a wonderful album.
And that's rad. Thank you so much.
You mentioned that there is a new music video dropping. So, for which track is that? And tell me about that.
Into the Sun.
Into the Sun. Okay, so you must know as you're leading up to this that, like, right, we're going to drop Into the Sun on release day. That's a big thing, a big moment. So why that track? And obviously I haven't seen the video yet, so tell me a little bit about the video and how all that's come together.
We just all really love that song, and we feel like it's a good representation of what the album is, and we feel like our fans would like it. And so the label agreed, and months and months and months and months later, here we are on release day. It's funny because a lot of this is just months of planning and preparation.
Is there a great sense of relief then when it's all just finally out? It's just like, oh, it's done.
Yeah, because that's when like the emails stop and stuff. But then we'll be on tour, so it'll be a whole different. My brain will be completely compartmentalized on performing and not at all about creating music or the record or anything.
yeah. I completely understand that. Right. Well, let's play this now. This is Of Mice and Men and Into the Sun. Aaron, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Primordial Radio.